The Korean War, not the Korean War, but the World War II and Vietnam.
And what was your rank when you left service?
Master Sergeant, U.S. Air Force.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted.
Do you remember the year?
What?
Do you remember what year you were drafted?
I put in 26 years, so it's 1940 something, 44 maybe.
Well, it was during World War
I think
II.
Yeah.
You know how old you were at the time?
21, I believe.
Where were you living at the time?
In Newark, New Jersey.
Why did you pick the branch of the service that you did? The Air Force didn't draft you? Oh, the Air Force was part of the Army then?
Yeah, no, I picked the Air Force.
Why did you pick the Air Force?
Because I didn't want to be in the Army. Yes.
Do you recall your first days in service?
Did what?
Do you recall your first day?
Did I retire in first?
Do you recall?
I'm very deaf.
Oh, okay. Do you recall your first days in service? What was it like, the first days that you were in the
First day in service? Well, I was in Camp Dix, New Jersey for about 30 days. Spent 10 of those days on KP, which was, they say, was a outstanding performance. KP, peeling potatoes and all the other stuff, that cleaning up the pots and pans.
Was this during basic training?
This is in first thing in basic training, yes.
What else did they teach you in basic training besides KP?
Not much at my first station. I took my basic training in Florida, Miami Beach, Florida. I was there for about 6 or 7 months. This was basic training. And we did our basic training right on the beach in Miami.
What kinds of things did they teach you there?
Well, they just, most of it was all physical training, and checked out how to hold and shoot a rifle. We had, the basic training was mostly mental stuff, and activities that would normally be performed under the Air Force at the time was in the process of in the war, and I don't know. I think I stayed in Miami Beach about 6 months, basic training.
Do you remember any of your instructors?
Oh no. No. They were just all servicemen, the same like I don't remember any of their names or what their position they held. I know I was stationed at Dover, Delaware for about 5 times in my career as aircraft maintenance technician. After going to Keesler Field for 4 or 5 months of basic training on aircraft maintenance. Let's see, what else?
When you were in Miami Beach, what job did they train you to do?
It was just basic training to how to be
A soldier?
Up-to-date serviceman, you know.
Yeah. Where did you go after Miami Beach?
Oh boy. That's a long time ago. I thought I had all this information at home, but I went through my cabinets last night and I couldn't find it. In different stations I was stationed at.
When did you go overseas?
I went overseas the first time. I went to Hickenfield, Hawaii, for about 4.5 years.
And had the war started?
Yes,
So you were stationed in Hawaii?
I was stationed in Hawaii. Yeah.
What was your job assignment?
Aircraft maintenance technician.
What was Hawaii like for the 4 years you were there?
Well, it was very quiet there that time. There wasn't that much activity going on from the Japanese, and I spent a lot of time on the beach and NCO club. I was not a manager, but assistant manager of the NCO club after a while, and took care of the bartenders and the bars. And before I left there, I was the manager of the NCO club. It's the Hickam Air Force Base. From there, I can't remember because I was in so many different stations, how many different moves I've made.
But you can't remember the year? Did you see combat?
I didn't actually see combat, but I was in Aishima, Japan, during World War II, and there was quite a few times that aircraft come over our Hudson with shooting, and we had to jump out of our bed and run into a ditch that we all had made before at the time, and we'd get down and huddle up in a ditch.
And this was in Japan?
I was, let's see. I don't think I was ever in Japan, no. I think Vietnam was the closest I got to it.
Can you remember any experiences from World War II? We'll do World War II first and then Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, the only thing is I can remember is the fact that going to aircraft maintenance school and coming out as a member of the maintenance department, and I worked on anywhere from C-54s up to C-124s on different types of maintenance. I was assistant line chief for a while there, and during the war. Let's see, where did I go after that? It's been a long time for me to remember.
Well, that was a long time ago.
Yes.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Yes, the ones I have on.
Can you tell me what those are for?
I would have told you.
We'll look it up and I'll
Yeah.
put it in the record for
Well,
library.
I know that this is a good service report.
Good Conduct Award?
Good conduct.
Or Good Conduct Medal?
This is Asiatic Pacific. This one is, oh geez, what kind of medal is that? Meritorious medal for something. And this one, I forget that. And this one, I don't remember it. If they didn't go into my stuff this morning, I would have had that book with me. I could tell you exactly what each
We'll
one.
look it up. Are all of those medals from World War II?
Yes, everyone.
And what was your rank at the time in World War II? Were you a sergeant already?
In World War II?
Yeah.
Well, I was a staff sergeant for a long time. Then I finally made master sergeant in 19... What does it say in there?
I think we had that. In 1964.
64.
While you were in Hawaii, how did you stay in touch with your family?
Some places I was lucky enough to have my family with me. But there were some stations where the families weren't allowed. And if it was close enough, like I was stationed in Dover, Delaware, 3 or 4 different times, and I was living in Paterson, New Jersey. And I used to run home once a month on a weekend in Paterson, which is about a 120-mile drive for me.
Were you married at the time?
I'm not even sure what year I got married.
Were you married while you were in Hawaii?
Oh yes, yeah, Hawaii. I was in, and she was with me in China for a while too.
You were stationed in China at one time?
Yeah, what is it now? Nanking. I was in there for about 6 months, and they gave her permission to come over and visit me for a while.
What were you doing in China? Aircraft maintenance?
Aircraft maintenance technician.
Did we have a base there?
Yes. I don't remember the base though.
Do you remember how long you were in China?
Maybe 6 to 8 months I was in there. And then I think that's another time that I went back to Dover Air Force Base for reassignment again. Stayed there another 3 or 4 years, and then they decided to send me someplace else.
Well, you've been a lot of places. You've been around.
Oh yes, I've been around the country.
What was the food like in the service?
The food? I would say it was mediocre food. Sometimes the KP attendants would make things too spicy or things like that. There wasn't too many times when we had special meals like turkey or things like that. Only on special occasion you'd get a blast of some decent food. But the normal food was potatoes and eggs and sometimes waffles. It was edible, but you know, it was nothing to brag about either.
Why did you decide to make the military career? If you were drafted, you only had to stay for a few years.
Yes, I did.
You stayed a lot longer than
Yes,
that.
I did. Well, at the time there was no jobs on the outside anyway. And I figured the best place to be would be in the service where I had a steady income. And I raised 3 children while in the service. I have one son he's a retired captain from the Hartford Police Department. He retired 2 or 3 years ago. He now lives in Florida with his family. And my other children live within a driving distance of where I live. My next son, my second son lives in Southington, Connecticut, and I used to go see it over there once or twice a month just to have something to eat, and some occasion would come up and have a little party. And my daughter, she lives in in what is it now? I should have had those older, but I'm going to. In fact, I'm going to see her this weekend. And she lives
But
in.
it's close by.
Yeah,
So you had 2 boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl. Yeah.
Did you feel pressure or stress while you were in the Air Force?
No, not really.
Did you do anything for good luck?
Good luck.
Yeah. You know how some guys have rabbit foot?
No, not too much that I can consider. Good luck.
So you were in World War II, and where were you during the Korean War?
In the Korean War,
You must have been stationed in the United States. Were you stationed back?
I must have been in the United States at the time because I didn't go to Korea at
All
all.
right. You skipped the Korean War, and how did you get involved in Vietnam?
That was a choice of my own to go to Vietnam and help out over there the best I could. But as I said, I was only there a total of 10.5 months or so. And
Where
then
did you go in Vietnam?
at the name of the base now.
Was it Tan Son Nhut? Tan Son Nhut Air Base was in the
Yeah,
south.
Tan Son Nhut. Yeah,
Okay.
Tan Son Nhut I was at. Yeah. And while I was over there, my son was in the Coast Guard, and his ship was out in the Vietnam waters. I took a flight down from Tan Son Nhut to another base where I could get a flight, not a flight, but a ship to take me out to his ship in the Vietnam waters. I spent overnight with my son on his ship. The Navy come back the next morning, picked me up and brought me back to the shore again.
Wow. That must have been something to be all the
Oh,
way
yes.
across the world and to see your
Yeah,
son.
that's right.
So your son was in the Coast Guard at the same time you were in the Air Force?
Yes.
And you were both fighting in Vietnam?
Yes.
What did that feel like?
Well, we kept contact with each other because he traveled around so much, you know, I never knew where he was at. But in the Coast Guard, I guess it's a touch and go, how long they stay in one place.
Was that the only time that you got to see him while you were in Vietnam?
Just once.
What was your job assignment while you were in Vietnam? Aircraft maintenance?
I was an aircraft maintenance technician. I was a flight chief, and I was a line chief also.
What does a line chief do?
Line chief takes care of assigning different jobs to the maintenance men and perform major inspections on the aircraft, authorize permission to go on leave when the maintenance men have the time or the reason to go someplace. It was a lot of responsibility as a line chief.
And did you stay right on Tan Son Nhut Air Base when you were over in Vietnam?
Well, yes, I did.
And then
We only had 7 aircraft at Tan Son Nhut. And I wasn't the line chief there. I was the chief of the maintenance. I was when the planes landed after a mission, the crew chief on that plane would come in and report to me what went wrong with the airplane, and then I would submit my report to the service personnel, and they would assign different people to go out and repair whatever they wrote up in the book.
how did the aircraft differ in Vietnam from what you worked on in World War II? You must have had to keep up to date as aircraft
Well, I was on
evolved.
in Vietnam. We had C-7As, which was two-engine carrier, people and material. It was a small airplane, but it was a lively airplane. And they would take off early in the morning, come back around mid-noon sometimes, sometimes later. Well, it depends on how things were going. When they were transporting things, they would have to go to different stations in Vietnam to deliver things.
Were C-7As?
It was a cargo plane, but it was a converted cargo plane. It could be set up as a passenger plane also. It had the metal, the material that would fold up and just hang up on a hook and as a passenger plane. When they use it as a shuttle plane with the material, then they just rolled everything up on rollers, and that was in the airplane. They tie them all down and stock them up so that they wouldn't move while they're going to their destination.
Were all 7 aircraft at Thompson the C-7As?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Your entire 10 months in Vietnam, is that the aircraft that you worked on?
Yes. I didn't work on them.
You were in
I was a
charge
chief.
of the,
Yeah.
of having other guys work on them.
I did go out and work on one airplane one day because I had nobody that could repair what went wrong, and I worked on one of the engines and had to work in the wheel well to get at the part that was bad. That was quite an experience too.
What was that like?
It was a hydraulic thing that I had to replace, and it was part of the engine, the hydraulic system. But in order to get at it, you had to go in through the wheel well, take off some cowling, and then the part would be in front of you, and you'd have to have special tools and equipment just to get at the item that you're going to replace, and then take it out and get a new one from supply and put another one back in.
Did you ever feel pressure or stress at times like that you had to get those aircraft fixed?
Not really any stress, no. As I said, I had one airplane especially that I worked on, and the rest of the time I spent as a maintenance officer, or whatever you want to call it, and I took all the discrepancies from the crew chiefs of these aircraft after they come back from a mission. Then I would call the report, the maintenance report into the, I forget what they call it now. Anyway, it was the people that were in the maintenance control. I called maintenance control, and they would assign different sections of different stations on the field to go out and repair the part that need to be repaired.
How many men would you say worked on aircraft maintenance? Was this a large group?
Well, I can remember they took a picture of me for some reason, and there was something about 110 men or something. It was the whole flight, the whole flight crews, all the people that worked on the airplanes.
Did you make friendships with fellow officers or men?
Friendships?
Yes.
Oh, I had quite a few fellas that worked for me we were pretty close, and I probably didn't get to see them as often as I wanted to. But occasionally I would run into one of them in the NCO club or something like that, or in the canteen, and there wasn't that many people that was over there with their families. I was one of the lucky ones that had my family there for a while. My wife was there almost 6 months before they decided to send her back home.
Wow, that wasn't dangerous?
It was, yes. Yeah, she came home on a ship. It took almost a week or so before the ship got from Cameron Bay to New York.
Wow, that was a long
It was a
cruise.
long trip, yeah.
Was she there while your son was there too?
No, she wasn't there, but when my son and I met, I was isolated out there by myself.
How did your son enlist, or was he drafted?
No, I think he enlisted in the Coast Guard. I don't think he was drafted.
Did you ever leave Tan Son Nhut Air Base and go any other places in Vietnam?
Not legally, no. not more than a day or so, anyway. There was a couple of other bases around where some of the members that were stationed there as maintenance men I had known for years, and I'd hitch a ride down one of the C7As and go down to visit some of my friends and come back the next day.
What were some of the other bases that you'd go visit?
Oh boy. I don't have all that information with me.
But there were other Air Force bases in South Vietnam?
Yes, yeah.
Did you keep in touch with any of the guys that you were friends with?
Before I got out of service, I got together with a bunch of fellows and we had a little get together at an NCO club, and let's see, where was that? I think it was at Chanute Air Force Base. I ran into 4 or 5 different master sergeants and tech sergeants, and we had a little party at the NCO club, and we talked about old things and what they were doing, things like that, and what they were doing down at Tan Son Nhut.
Was there any kind of entertainment for the servicemen while you were over in Vietnam?
Yes, a couple of times we had a big theater out there, and every night they would have something out there. And usually on a Friday or Saturday night, we'd have a big band come out and entertain us. It was a big studio that they built at Tan Son Nhut.
Did you live right on the base?
I lived in a tent.
In a tent?
On the base, because there was no families allowed.
When your wife was there, where did you live? Did she live in the tent too?
No. See, I don't think I got that information with me. I had a list of all the houses, all the addresses I've had in the service and out of the service for 25 years. And I didn't remember finding that paper because Joe and Al Santucci went through my paperwork and just said, "Oh, you don't need this, you don't need that," you know. And the rest of it's all back at the VA hospital.
When he comes back, I'll tell him to make me a copy of that, because it'll show where you lived.
If he can find it.
Yeah. When your wife was there, were you on base or off base?
Well, I think the only time that my wife was with me where we was on the base was at Dover Air Force Base. And I put 3 tours out of Dover. And we always had base housing. And I raised 2 children there at Dover. And that's another place where I worked at the NCO club as a bartender or a waiter. I always kept myself busy. Sometimes I put 12, 14 hours out on the flight line. and go home and clean up and go to work at the NCO club. Well, money wasn't that good at that time, you know. You couldn't stretch your monthly pay more than 2 or 3 weeks sometimes. But most of the people go out and get odd lot jobs that, you know, they could stretch their dollar bill.
So when you worked at the officers club or did bartending or waiting, that was extra pay?
Yeah.
On top of your service pay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you get to see the Bob Hope show at all, or any of the entertainers?
I think I saw Bob Hope someplace. I think it was at. I think it was at Vietnam, the air base there. But I know I saw Bob Hope and his crew come over for a nightly visit. I'm pretty sure it was at Tonsanute.
Do you remember what that was like?
Well,
Did you have a big concert?
well, it had. They had a lot of musicians there, but it wasn't really a concert deal. It was just gags and, you know, fun and dancing and stuff like that. And there was only some seating out away from the stage that they had built for entertainment at that time, and we'd sit out in the back part on benches.
Do you have any pictures from when you?
I had some pictures, but I was told that you didn't want them.
Now I do. But I'll get back in touch with you.
Yeah.
If you have them and you can find them, I'd like to make copies of them.
Okay.
Do you recall any humorous or funny stories?
Oh, I can't remember back that far. My mind is going and my hearing is going. In fact, I normally wear 2 hearing aids, and both of them are in the shop for repair.
Oh, wow.
I've been without hearing aids now for 3 weeks.
Oh, that must be tough.
Yeah, it is.
Did you keep a personal diary while you were?
Not really, no.
Do you remember your last days in Vietnam before you were shipped back home?
Not too much, because there wasn't too much going on over there, you know, where I could remember about.
Was it the end? Do you remember the years you were there in Vietnam? Was it the beginning or the end of the war?
It was the end of my war, the end of my period. I was almost, in fact, when I came back from Vietnam, I went to McCord Air Force Base in Washington, in the state of Washington, to retire.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Then you must have been older when you were in Vietnam. How old were you?
I was in Vietnam. $10 or 11 months in Vietnam.
And when you came home to the United States, did you retire from the Air Force at that time?
Yes, I retired from McCord Air Force Base in Washington, state of Washington.
Did you come home from Vietnam first, or your son?
No, he was still in the service, and when I retired, and his ship come back from Vietnam, and they docked in New York someplace. I forget the station. But my wife and I both went down and met his ship when the ship landed in New York. We were stationed in Connecticut, I think, at the time. I was living in Connecticut.
When you retired from McCord in Washington, what did you do after that? Or where did you go?
Ooh. Trying to remember. I know I wasn't out of the service too long when I got to work when I went to work for Pratt & Whitney in Middletown, Connecticut, as a machine operator, and I used to balance the parts before the parts were put into the engine. I used to run a balance machine. And I used to balance all the big fan blades, all the big fans for these C-120, not 124, but 29s and all these new airplanes they got now. Big, enormous big fan.
That's okay.
That's it.
Have you seen a lot of change in the aircrafts?
Oh
since
yeah,
you first
yeah.
started out?
Yeah, I'll say.
When
I wouldn't recognize half the planes anymore.
you don't think so?
Yeah.
How did you end up in Connecticut from Washington?
When I come back from when I retired, I went back to Massachusetts, Drake, Massachusetts, where my wife was living. And we stayed there for about 6 months or so. And then we relocated and went back to, I forget where we went back, to Connecticut or something. Been a long time.
And then how long did you work at Pratt & Whitney before you retired from there?
I retired on a medical. I put in almost 9 years at Pratt & Whitney, but they wouldn't retire me as a long-time employee. They retired me medically, and I don't get nothing from Pratt & Whitney. I got one big check when I retired, and that's it. I don't get no retirement pay from Pratt & Whitney.
Wow. What did you do after you retired from Pratt & Whitney?
Oh boy.
You stayed in Connecticut.
I'm trying to think. Well, I put 25 years at the VA hospital, I know.
Really?
Yeah. I was a volunteer driver for the driver's department.
At the VA hospital in Newington,
In Newington,
Connecticut?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was that
Yeah.
volunteer work or they paid you?
No, they didn't pay me, no. It was all volunteer.
This was after you retired from Pratt &
The
Whitney?
only thing I got out of that trip is I had a free lunch every day. That's all they give you, is a free $4 lunch.
And what would you do? Pick up
Pick up patients in my own car. I didn't even drive the VA vans. So I used my own car. I wore out 3 cars.
Oh my heavens. John, you've done a lot of stuff in your life.
Yeah. I've got medals on my other cap. In fact, I left that cap in my car back at the VA hospital. There's all the ribbons and everything that I got from services I've performed in the last 20-something years.
Wow. Did you join any veterans organizations?
I belong to the American Legion in Connecticut. I belong to the VFW in Connecticut. I belong to the DAV in Connecticut. What other one? I think I'm still a member of the Elks in Connecticut also.
Wow. You're in a lot of organizations. Have you had any reunions since you got out of the service?
Not reunions, no, but the DAV is the one I'm so active in, and we have big state meetings and conventions once a year.
And are you still active in the DAV?
Yes, I am. I'm a service officer for the DAV, state DAV. I'm a chaplain for the chapter DAV in Bristol. I'm the chaplain. I've got 4 more months of that before I'll be out of that.
What are your duties as chaplain?
All you do is, that's a very simple job. You open all the meetings. You open the meeting with a prayer for the beginning of the service, and then when all the paperwork is taken care of during the meeting, then we have a closing prayer, salute the flag, and the meeting's over. Usually 35, 40 minutes it's over with.
And that's once a month?
That's the first Tuesday of every month, yes.
And where do you go for that?
Right in the DAV in Bristol.
And what does DAV stand for?
Disabled American Veterans.
What other activities do you do with either the VFW or the DAV?
I don't do anything for the other ones anymore. I used to call bingo for the VFW in Plainville, but I had a little conflict with some of the other officials of the club, and I quit doing it. I had a concern where I caught some people stealing money, and I got in trouble over that, and they didn't like me for reporting them in. You know, why don't you keep your mouth shut, you know. You were doing something wrong, and I saw it, and I told people about it, and you got the word after I passed it out.
So are you still, what do you do now for activities?
I'm still the obituary officer at the DAV in Bristol. I check the newspapers every day to see if there's any of our members that died, you know, in the paper every day. And then if it is one of our members that died, and his burial is not going to be for a day or two, then I usually go to not to the cemetery, to the funeral parlor, and say a little prayer for the member that died. Place forget-me-not on his chest, salute him, and then go back and shake hands with those family members and things like that.
And you do this yourself?
I've been doing this for 20 years.
And you go to every one of them?
Every one of them for the DAV.
Oh my
Every one
gosh,
of them.
you must have been to a lot of them.
Yeah, I've been enormous.
Now, when you go through the obits in the papers, do you just look for Air Force guys?
No, I just look for DAV members.
Oh.
Well, we have a 900-page, a 900-member book, membership book, which I'm due to get a new report in right now this month, and I have to number every member's name, so to put it in the book in place where it's supposed to be alphabetically. And then the old numbers, we just throw them away or pile them up in the office. We have an office next door, and it's a little part of the office at one of our, what does it say? His name is Bill Shea, but he has I forget what he's called. All of his stuff is business, money, stuff like that.
Now, members of the disabled veterans, are they from all different branches of the service?
Oh, yes.
So it could be a Navy man that dies, if he's in the DAV, you go?
Yes.
Do you go alone, or does a group of?
Well, if I can get a group to go with me, especially if it's a member of the club that is an officer of the club, then I'll ask 3 or 4 guys if they want to go down, pay their respects at the funeral home, and sometimes someone will say, "Sure, I'll go." But any other time, I usually have to go down to a wake just by myself and say a little prayer and salute the patient and walk out and show my respects to the family and present them. I usually present them with a flag case, you know, after. If the military man has got a flag over his casket, then and he's a member of our club, then he deserves a flag case. And I go down to the engraver, which I have in Bristol, and he makes up the person's name and his date of death, and I put that on the front of the flag case before I present it to the family.
That must mean a lot to the family.
It's a good keepsake. Yeah.
It must mean a lot to the families when they see another military man come, because I'm sure they don't expect that.
No, they don't. Yeah, some of them don't. As they say, as you said, a lot of the people that even though they know that their husband was in the service and they belong to the DAV, they don't know who's going to come represent the DAV. And this is my, say, 20th year I'm doing this, and I'm going to quit after this. This coming May, I'll have my 23rd year in as obituary officer, and I'm just going to give it up. It's too much for me.
Wow. Well, you sure stay at things for a long time.
Yeah. Just going to the DAV every morning and looking through the Bristol Press and the Hartford Current to see if any of our members died is enough. But
you go every morning?
I go every day. Every day, 7 days a week.
Wow, that's really commitment.
Yeah. In fact, we just had a past commanders dinner Saturday night, and the commander that we have right now, he gave me a big award for the service that I do for the club, and I donated $1,000 towards the renovation of the bar, and they made a big thing out of that, and everybody gave me a big round of applause, and I just talked to them through the microphone and asked that there's so many people around here that I'm sure that they could be a little bit more easier with their money and add to this here fund that I've started here to renovate this bar. And they just clapped and said, we'll see.
So
Nobody
started
like
it, huh?
nobody me but a sucker.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or the military?
Did my military?
Experience influence the way you think about the war or about military?
No, not really, because I try not to talk about it. I don't tell everybody about my experiences or where I was and things like that.
Why?
Well, it's been so long since I got out of service, I'd like to forget it. I know in the back of my mind I can never forget what different things that I went through and different people I met and things like that. But I don't like the members of the club talking about me like that. Expressing their opinion of the things that I do and what I've been doing around the club. So I try to keep my mouth shut.
How did you feel about your son? Did only one son join the military?
Yes, yeah.
And were you in favor of that? How did you feel about him joining?
Oh, it was all right. I was surprised to hear that he did enlist in the Coast Guard, and that he was going to be a radio technician. So he's a pretty smart fellow anyway. In fact, he's a retired police captain from Hartford right now, Hartford Police Department. He lives in Florida.
Why did he pick the Coast Guard and not the Air Force?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
How did the military affect your life? Because you spent a lot of your life in the military.
Well, I don't have no complaints about how I was treated as the military in the service of the time I was in. I thought it was a privilege and an honor for me to be represented in the Air Force and things like that, and talk about different experiences of the time that I spent. A lot of times I don't like to talk about it. Well, it depends on the mood I'm in.
Are you happy that you picked the Air Force?
Oh yeah, I was happy. Because I didn't want to be in the Army. I didn't want to go in the Army.
Why?
I don't know, I just didn't care for the training I was watching on TV before I even went into service. And I just
Have you seen a big change in the Air Force from when you first enlisted and from when you retired?
No, I don't believe that there's anything that I see different that's going on that was going on when I was there. I know that they're doing got a lot of women in now in the service, and the women are doing very good on their rank and privileges and things like that. It seemed like they're a lot smarter than they were 25, 30 years ago. And that's about it.
And so right now you're retired, and are you living alone?
I'm alone, yes.
Your daughter and your son are nearby, and it sounds like you still stay pretty active in the DAV.
Yeah. Well, I have a daughter lives in New Hampshire, and my youngest son lives in Southington, and my oldest son lives in Miami, Florida.
And you're still very active at your young age. When are you going to slow down?
The day that they say, God bless you, you did a good job. The day I die, that's probably when I'll quit. I was threatening to quit, as I said, this year, but my commander says, no, you're not going to quit on me.
Oh, really?
When I get out of service, you can do anything you want to, but not while I'm commander. You're not going to quit. He just gave me that alternative.
As an officer, because you were a master sergeant?
Master sergeant.
How was your life different as an officer than the enlisted men underneath you?
Well, I don't know any difference about the high-ranking officers and the enlisted men that worked for me under me. I always got along good with them. I'd ask a guy to do something, and sure, if I can do it, I can do it. I'm very cooperative, and I got along good with the people that worked for me. I tried to keep active with the officers and people that are above me also.
Is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered in this interview?
Well, the only other thing is I spent 25 years as a VA volunteer for the DAV hospital, for the VA hospital. I have my last my last award was a 4,000-hour pin for driving my car, bringing the patients to the hospital.
4,000 hours?
4,000 hours.
That's a lot. You certainly have given a huge hunk of your life
Yeah,
and
yeah,
lots
that's
of
right, I have.
time.
In fact, we got a DAV meeting coming up next month, I think it is, in Rocky Hill. No, in Meriden, some restaurant. We usually have a place to go to, a big restaurant, big eating place. Sometimes 20 or 30 people show up to the meetings. I haven't gone to any DAV national meetings yet because I can never get time or the money to go to travel around, the expense of just going to the meeting. And then the meeting lasts 3 days and you got to stay in a hotel and a motel. Another $150 right there, you know. I try and stretch my money the best I can. I make good money, but I mean I get it from the government, but I have other expenses that I have to take care of before I can take care of myself.
If you had it to do all over again, would you do the same way? Make the military your career?
I'm not sure. Not being that much active with the military as I used to be. I don't know whether or not I could take some of the things that they ask you to do nowadays. I believe that I did my share and I did the best I could and I got rewarded for it, and that's all I need.
Is there anything else that you can recall that you'd like to add?
Now, I think I've given you just about everything that I've been involved in between the DAV and the VA hospital. I don't do much in my other office, other units or veterans organizations that I belong to. I'm not very active in them anymore, but you know, I'm strictly right now a DAV full-time member, you know, full-time troublemaker. I go down there every day and sit down and read the papers and read all the obituaries, and I take care of the bathrooms, I clean up the bathrooms, I fill up all the toilet paper towels and paper towels, and keep all the supplies in stock that we use normally during the day or week. And
You think you could still work on an airplane?
well, being that so many of them are jets now, I don't think I'd want to work on jets because I'm sure that they're as complicated working on as they are when I was watching them being built in Pratt & Whitney, because too complicated.
Well, I'd like to thank you for
Well, I hope I gave you enough.
interview you, John.
Hope I gave you enough information that you want.
Yes, you have. I appreciate it. I think it's an honor and a privilege for me to be able to talk to somebody who's given as much as you have for our country.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.